Hello, Mr. Lenrell. How are you?
I'm good, Perry Bentz. How are you there in Thailand? Just on the other side of the curve of the world. Just right over here, or right
Yeah,
over there, depending on how you look at it. But
yeah,
you know,
correct.
we're not very
So
far
before
apart.
waiting for our show, Mr. Lenrell.
If you're out in space looking at the planet, man, we're close together. On one planet.
Yeah, correct.
The further out in space you get, we're even closer together. Until there's no distance between us at all, you get far enough away. So it's all relative, how people view things.
Uh-huh.
They think of terms of Thailand from the United States being far away, but that's because they've grown up in a culture that doesn't know how to get around instantly. They don't have the technology, they've got to use a rocket with fuel and burning hydrogen and gases and making smoke in the atmosphere to get anywhere, or jet aircraft. There's companies testing jet engines now, big airliners, replacing two of the four jet engines with electric motors because the electric motor technology is greatly advanced in the last few years. And they want to convert polluting aircraft that use jet fuel now to electric engines that'll produce the torque, the thrust. And they're doing it right now. They're flying them right now. So that's underway. That's a good thing.
Scott, nowadays we heard many kinds of same kind of news like this, more often. Why? Can you give
The
us?
news is there, but think about how people primarily focus their imagination. Most people are conditioned and brought up afraid of the future. Nuclear war with Russia, nuclear war with China, nuclear war with North Korea. Not that North Korea could have a nuclear war. They don't have enough missiles to defend themselves against any, not even France, not even Pakistan or India have more missiles than they do. So if they ever went to war, they'd be wiped off the face of the earth in 20 minutes, under 20 minutes. They'd be gone. No more North Korea. So they have to know that, their systems are like anybody on earth. People grow up afraid of the old Soviet Union, or they grew up right out of World War II afraid of the Nazis who wanted to murder 3/4 of the people on the planet, deliberately murder them. And it's only 70 years ago on one planet in its history. Come out of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and now into the coronavirus where people hoard toilet paper out of fear when there is no shortage and things like this. We've never had a nuclear war because we're not allowed to have one. And I mean, it has nothing to do with the powers on this planet. No matter what they tell people, we're not allowed to have a nuclear war because races from other worlds and other realities will not tolerate it. And they're not going to tell you that to the public yet, even though they know it well enough. They won't, because it figures, well, if we tell the public that, they're not going to trust us to protect them, or the U.S. military isn't going to protect anything, or Russia's or China's, because, gee whiz, there's guys that can keep us from having nuclear war if we want to. It's pretty irresponsible, childish, and idiotic, and even how do you call it? Quite deranged, almost lunacy for anybody to consider having nuclear war to fight over their petty differences. You got to be a pretty immature, almost deranged culture of people on Earth to do something like that. And people on Earth grow up thinking that's normal. I mean, how else could they don't see anything else growing up. This is not normal. The vast number of beings and races that live out there among the stars in our galaxy that can travel between planets far faster than the speed of light come here, but they're not tyrants. They come here to observe how human beings can act completely insane on a planetary scale in almost every way. Pollute their own environment, eat foods that kill them, toxify their own foods, put growth hormones in animals, put sewage, dump it in the ocean. Just the whole way this culture is run is well, it certainly is not very advanced. If you were a sane culture, if this planet really was, the first thing they would have done with their money and their power is figure out how to change sewage and things like that into something else so they don't pollute their own ground, their own water table. They would have solved that problem. If there was a planet of beings that were more evolved than they were human, they would have saw the need to protect their own environment, their air, their water, their what people excrete. They would have made technologies to change the molecules of, say, sewage into something useful just by rearranging the molecules. And to do that, they have to know how to use technology to break down molecules, not like nuclear bombs blowing them up, and recombine them in other forms. Now that's technology that's very old, out in the multiverse. You got a whole planet full of governments who want to lie to the people about what they know, that other races exist out there that have contacted governments here in secret. Because they're not tyrants, they don't want to come here and run these crazy governments. They're insane. To them, the governments on Earth are so out of balance, you can't even work with them. You can't come here from other worlds and work with people on Earth if none of the country's leaders will talk to each other without demanding this and trade and money and this and that and the other thing. It's pointless, waste of time. So you come here and you present something to people. Decades ago, after World War II, it gets turned down, you leave. You keep monitoring the thing, you keep preventing nuclear war, and you wait until people get ready. Until it's possible for kind beings, very advanced, to come here in massive numbers and offer their assistance at no monetary charge whatsoever. Now, how can you do that in a system of governments that use money to control people, to keep them ignorant of the truth, or they threaten to take it away? That's a problem. Think about this as if you were a normal human being on a normal human planet, looking at Earth the way it is, amongst hundreds of millions of such worlds that don't have these pollution problems. They don't even allow money. It's illegal. Okay, and then they look at Earth and say, how do we fix this? If you act like some tyrant alien races that have snuck into Earth and subconsciously manipulated certain elite people on this planet illegally, and then they were caught and stopped, and they try again, and it's been that kind of a struggle with this planet, its leaders, since the end of World War II, because 35 countries agreed to keep quiet, keep suppressed any knowledge of extraterrestrials for several reasons. They just came out of a war. There's a Soviet Union and a communist China, and there's this whole reverse engineering alien technology to see who comes out on top with the most weapons and all of that. It's that old mentality of World War II carried forward into the future among countries. The problem with that is that you're using technology that's designed to unpollute a world, and you're making weapons out of it to see who can have the best weapons to come out on top as a leader. It's competitive, and it's not healthy. So the amount of money and time that's been spent since World War II investing in weapons technology, classified, if a small fraction of that money were spent right now on this earth collectively by all governments to use science to solve sewage problems, matter problems, DNA problems, genome problems, disease problems, air pollution, water pollution, they could have solved all this long ago already. But the energy and the money is being put in places where it's destructive and negative. And ultimately, there is no future in it whatsoever. No one country is going to come out on top and get allowed to go play among the stars amongst more advanced races out there. Because the more advanced races out there aren't going to tolerate it. I wouldn't. You wouldn't. Any normal human wouldn't even consider it. Allowing people from Earth to come and play among the stars the way they are. Bringing all their religious biases and prejudice and all their political lies and deceit and all their weapons out there to, let's have some trade with people from the stars. Not going to happen. Not on any large scale. Not as long as people on Earth operate the way they do. This world's going to have to get out of its childish, spoiled brat kind of thinking and work together, country to country, people to people. And that's going to mean a change in the way governments are. A one world government is not a bad thing if it's not a tyrant system. A one world government that's run by an elite of spoiled, selfish, greedy, self-righteous, arrogant people is destructive. So which one world government do you want? One where the leaders of this government are the most evolved, kind people, trustworthy, or the most despotic? That's a choice. If certain elite people on this planet had had their way already, most of us wouldn't be alive here. Most of the population, that's 7 billion, be down to 500 million, controllable, easier to control. So you get this pandemic come out and everybody goes, well, who started it? Was it done deliberately? And is it really killing how many people it's killing, and so forth and so on? What matters isn't any of that. What matters is what we do as a people with it. What do we learn from it? It means that billions now are starting to go, hundreds of billions of dollars are now going into research, very rushed research to try to solve erasing and eradicating such pandemics. Nobody would put the money there before this. Nobody would do it. So you get something like the SARS virus or Ebola, and it affects a little few people in a few countries, and it's kind of suppressed. It really doesn't get out in the world to a large degree. Nobody's really put the money and the time into solving this disease problem on this planet. They never have, ever. And they should have a long time ago. Now they're compelled to do it. You can blame this on anyone, but ultimately it's causing or compelling people to have to look at things differently and work together in ways they wouldn't have. Country to country, and they still got these corrupt governments. It's still selfish, run by selfish people. But even those selfish people have had to bend to the will of people all over the world and change the direction they're heading this world. So it's not all negative. It appears that way. You got to remember, I think it's 40 or 50,000 people a year die from the flu in the United States without this pandemic, from just the flu, and in other countries, or from some other disease or cancer or something. So people are dying to get off this planet all the time anyway. The question is, what would the planet be like if it were normal? Most people think they know what normal is, and believe me when I tell you, they do not have a clue what that is. If they look out the window and on the news and out into other countries and look at this planet the way it's run, they think that's normal. They couldn't be more deranged or more misled, because it's far from normal compared to worlds that know how to run their worlds already, that have done so for hundreds of millions of years, maybe longer. And these people that I know of that are not from this earth, and their master teachers, and their technology. If you go back in galactic history, you're going to find where at some point these other world systems, when they reached a critical place in their evolution, industrial age to space, and they could have destroyed themselves or not, at the last minute, they always had somebody or something contact them or change things so they don't destroy themselves. And then they're picked up and brought into a larger world organizations, of massive organizations out in the galactic alliance of things. And they go through great change. This would be the first time. Earth, I would have to say, out of all the history of this galaxy, is probably the most backward run, misdirected bunch of people afraid of everything and everyone that's ever been out there on a planetary scale. And so if you're good guys, you want to know how to help fix people who won't even speak to each other on the phone honestly, like the leader of China, leader of the United States, leader of Russia. They've got all this language couch and all these people monitoring everything, and they have to beat around the bush and play all kinds of political games just to try to get some little thing accomplished, because they're competitive. They're being in competition with each other. That's wrong. There's nothing right about it. People will say, well, competition makes people invent new things. Competition is negative. People raised on a planet to compete are taught to be negative, to outcompete their neighbor for some goal that is usually about their ego. If people are grown up on a planet are motivated to create new things for the benefit of all life, that's the correct motivation. That's the motivator that should be at the core of all people on this planet. That's not a normal planet. It's nowhere near anywhere near a normal planet yet compared to other worlds that they expect to go out and play with. If you were those people on those worlds, would you allow a bunch of knuckleheads from Earth to come out there with their competing ships from China and Russia and the United States and bring out their weapons and some nuclear bombs they won't be allowed to use anyway, and their beam weapons, and go out there and bring their religious differences and all their prejudices and biases, demands that people convert to the religion out in the stars and take it out there and throw that on them? Would you tolerate it if you were them? No. And they're not going to, and they don't. So Earth and its solar systems, its planetary system, is quarantined. Now, what kind of technology could quarantine an entire solar system? A solar system is a tiny little thing. Few planets circling one tiny little star amongst billions. And there are people in worlds around billions of stars that know how to play in all that. Now, those people, are they going to tolerate a little planet like Earth to come along with their egos and their lies and their lawyers and their deceit and their dishonesty and their politics and go out there and say, let's make a treaty? Can we mine your planets? How about no? How about no? You're never going to be allowed to mine worlds out among other stars because space is already occupied by more advanced races. It's just not going to happen that way. Now, Earth could be included in a larger organization, be given technology to play among the stars, and trade and have some good relationships. Fine. But we're not going to take our childish, immature, perverse understandings of God, spirit, and individuality as beings or soul and throw that on people who know better, who are far more advanced in their understanding of the source behind all life than we have ever been here. We're going to need to learn from them. We're going to need to be humble about this. That doesn't mean we have to put ourselves as a doormat under their feet, because they wouldn't even tolerate that amongst their own members. They don't lord what they have over their people. They don't demand worship of any kind. And yet people will insist on it if they go out among the stars, because they've been taught that they're supposed to worship some tyrant supreme being, absolute power over them. And if you don't worship him, you get a bolt of lightning up your keister, or sent to the devil. Do you really think anybody out in space who has a better understanding of that is going to tolerate that out there? Think about it. Would you? No. So I keep telling people I'm not concerned about the future of this planet. Not because there's people here who wouldn't destroy it if they could, because they would, but because they're not allowed to until it can change. When you know that, you don't live in fear. Fear is an artificially created, subconsciously implanted, negative misdirecting program that affects the nervous system of people on Earth. It means that whatever program is affecting them to make incorrect decisions on a planetary, monetary, political, religious level all over the world, when it stimulates the nervous system, they make decisions based on defensive, competitive fear. That's always negative and always incorrect, misdirecting, misleading. So these programs, within the subconscious, what people call subconscious, affect the nervous system without revealing what's visually, sound, and sight, what is in the program. They just affect the nervous system through feeling. So a person feels fear or feels something, they make decisions based on that. Decisions made on fear are always, without exception, incorrect. To some degree, very destructive and disastrous, to lesser degrees, depending on what's involved. So people on Earth, in order to make correct decisions and play with people among the stars and go out and grow up, are going to have to make decisions without fear, or they're not going to make the right ones. I'll give you an example. Eisenhower met with several beings from other worlds in secret. And of course, he was afraid. He grew up in the same country, came out of World War II, fighting Hitler, Japan. 5-star general. He was the head of the whole thing. worldwide. This 5-star, he's the only 5-star general there was. They made him a 5-star general because he was over all the whole World War II fight. See? And then he became president after he retired from the military and went into politics. People wanted him to run. But he was a 5-star military general. And when he met extraterrestrials, both good and tyrant nature, that had far more advanced technology, way beyond us, scared him. The decisions they made to not accept help when it was offered after World War II was based upon the influence of another tyrant race that had also connected with him and others. And they misused technology to influence the decision-making of these people without their knowledge. So we ended up with taking Nazi scientists who were thugs and murderers under Hitler, SS officers, into this country and into Russia, pardoned them, and put them in the head of research. Basically, research designed around reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. That's exactly what was done, because much of what they found in Nazi Germany that they acquired when they lost the war, Germany, were extraterrestrial-based technologies. So they classified it. They weren't ready to tell the world's people that, gee whiz, it's bigger than Hitler's good and bad guys out there in space, and they've been coming here and we're all influenced by them. How can you get people to rebuild a damaged world after World War II and feel safe to have babies if you tell them that? You couldn't, really. So a whole group of countries got together and decided to classify it higher than the nuclear bomb. And more money and energy has been spent suppressing their awareness of extraterrestrials in all these decades than spent anywhere else in the entire world that could have been used to change this world technologically. Disease, the study of genomes on the DNA, which people now know are switches, 1 billion of them. And some of them are off. They're not junk, they're just off. They just don't know how to turn them on. They're trying to figure out how to do that. It's on a submolecular level, very tiny. You know, so if you want to control a mass of people and keep them in fear, keep them not remembering, you want to turn off certain genomes on the DNA, which is a misuse of technology, so that when the being running the body tries to run higher faculties through it, like, what was I before I was born on Earth? What did I know from other worlds? They're terrified to bring that into conscious awareness in a brain and body that grew up on this planet with no memory, no training of any of that. And then people have to jump as adults often when they start searching for the truth from having no training at all, no confidence in any of it, in how to get out of their body or what they do when they're asleep at night, where they go. And you have to bridge that so that people can begin to understand they're supposed to, it's normal, they should be able to do this. On a normal planet, the understanding of the source behind all life, and this thing people call divine spirit, the 0 point energy, toroidal energy, the energy of the universe that's between everything, in everything, under everything, between the earth and the moon and the sun. You know, it's packed full of this energy. They used to think of as a void. They called dark matter because physical human eyes see it as dark. But when you're out of the body looking at it as soul, the Atma, the real you, it's a white golden light packed in space. Everything's floating in it. And that energy is not nuclear. The void of space doesn't have electrons and protons and neutrons of atoms and material and rocks and trees and mountains and people. It's energy, but it's not the same. It doesn't obey the laws of physics in the same way. So, like fourth phase water that's in human bodies, it's a telepathic medium, H2O, especially H2O with another hydrogen atom associated with other things. Then it becomes a medium through which we can communicate across vast distances in the cosmos, H2O, within our body and in bodies of water, if you know how to use them, big bodies of water on Earth. The Earth is 3/4 water. It's a huge telepathic medium. Tyrants would love to get a hold of this place because of what they can control in a dominating way by controlling that water element. It's not just for drinking. There's much more to it than that. And if you understand that fourth phase water in human bodies can be manipulated, or the DNA associated with utilizing it shut down, or you're afraid of it, now you're stuck being a body on earth, thinking you're a body that grows and dies, and you're afraid of death, fear of leaving your body, which people do every night. When they put the body to sleep like master experts every night, they don't realize the body goes into a trance state. Basically, it's put on automatic. People call it sleep. So there's nobody home when someone's snoring asleep. The body, the heart, the lungs, everything is working on them, and the being's gone. They've never been trained since they were brought up on earth without fear to bring back any awareness of what they're doing when they're out of their body at night. So it's very difficult for people to comprehend such a thing. So when they give up, they say, well, we can't know anything on earth, so when I die, I'll go to heaven and God will explain it all to me. There's absolutely no proof whatsoever, and never has been any in the history of this planet that anybody's died and come back to prove that's true. Why? How come nobody's ever come back and said, gee whiz, I'm so-and-so, I died. This is true. Now you say in some religious circles, someone dies and is resurrected or comes back to life to tell people that they live after the body dies. Well, so what? That's good, but it doesn't tell people how to do it while they're alive. They have to wait till after they die. That is the teaching of tyrants, Perry, because it makes people relax and sit back and do nothing but be controlled their whole life until they die. Faith should lead to experience. If it's genuine, if it's vital, if it's childlike, if it's alive, it should lead to experience, not just more faith. It should lead to direct experience, which makes people confident, which gives them one particular highest faculty of being, which is an aspect of what people call soul, or what more advanced beings call Atma, spherical. It gives it the ability to know things with certainty, direct knowing perception. That is a natural faculty of each being, each individual. People on earth, for the most part, are very, very terrified of knowing that, accepting it. They've been told subconsciously that if they do that, they will be killed or tortured. And so they steer away from it into what they think is safe territory. There's no security in being a body, believing you're going to go somewhere when it dies and then you'll be saved later. There's no security in that. So people live in doubt and fear. I don't care how strong their faith is, they're still in doubt and fear about something. So it's very important for people on earth in any faith, any religion, any belief, any esoteric practice, any ethical practice, to have real awakening direct experience with what they believe in. So it can go and make that leap from faith into knowing. They are two different things, faith and knowing. Naturally, one should lead to the other. So, yeah, Perry, you got to turn your mic on.
Scott, since people here live with fears, okay, based on fears, how can they drop fears? They try this. Many say try.
It's subconscious. Subconscious means it's below your awareness. People are taught that subconscious mind is a natural thing because the people that teach it don't know any better. They just decided to do that out of theory. Well, let's just teach them that because we don't understand it. They don't. Subconscious means that there's something influencing you that you're not aware of. That's not normal. There's nothing normal about it. It means that you're being influenced to make decisions and you don't know what it is that's influencing you, except you're afraid of it. Okay, so a person can't just remove subconscious drives through confident, positive thinking or anything all by itself. It helps because what creates the situation so a being can be free of subconscious influences comes into creation around them when they begin to use their imagination properly. What does that mean? It means when they begin to use their imagination consciously and of true free will to only imagine that which will bring about some kind of benefit for all life, not just on their world, all life everywhere. A disease cure for cancer would be helpful to beings anywhere in creation, wouldn't it? Unless that beings on other worlds already have it, which they do. But to create something that would benefit all the people in life on one planet would benefit everyone else, everywhere else too. And this is the kind of correct use of the imagination that allows a person, usually without knowing it, to cross paths with someone like me or others from other worlds to begin to recover what has been taken from them without their consent by tyrants at one point or another in their history. And I don't mean their history just on Earth in this lifetime. So when we go into the first half of the word human or human being, human, woman, being, that's there for a reason. That language and the use of language did not get invented on this planet by ancient people here, because human beings never evolved on this planet to develop languages. You know, they became a monkey, then became a man, or split off from Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, and then we became human, and then we developed what? Language? No. No. Language was invented way out in the galaxies, millions, even billions of years ago, and imported to this planet, including all the different races that are represented here. Were brought here at one time in a history going back 65 million years since the dinosaurs were made extinct. There's a huge history missing entirely from the populace of this planet. Not only do they not know the history of this planet, they don't know the history of the solar system they live in. They don't know the history of the galaxy they live in. They don't know that there's life out there or how advanced it is. They're in doubt and fear all the time, all over the world, including its leaders. So, I mean, if you think about it, if you find a race of people on a planet like us, you're going to find chaotic behavior everywhere because they're all making decisions based on subconscious fear. And that's only destructive. It can't be anything else. It's really quite an interesting thing when you begin to work consciously by setting up a connection telepathically from what you are that isn't the brain or the body, the spherical energy that's not nuclear or atomic in nature, but is energy that runs this body. It can connect into the 0-point energy, the toroidal energy, the energy of the universe that exists between planets and space and stars and galaxies and between dimensions, and link into a pool of wisdom that is comprised of all beings everywhere. And that kind of living can be then transferred from the conscious awareness of the Atma to the individual brain and body on a planet like Earth that never learned any of it. That body has to go through certain genetic changes, subtle. The brain that is 100% developed in people on Earth use 6 to 10% of it. So what's keeping them from using the other already developed part of it consciously? That's the problem. Because we should be. Somebody who has a photographic memory isn't using 100% of the brain even to do that. Just using 100% of the human brain, having it turned on, you'd be able to run faculties of the Atma through it all day long in so many phenomenal ways people can't even comprehend here. Through bodies like we have. Some of the genomes on the DNA and the bodies on people on Earth have been shut off deliberately. In a history they don't even remember, passed on genetically. So then a being gets incarnated for one reason or another. Usually they're compelled to against their will, or they're tricked into thinking it's good for them. And they come back here and get in a baby's body that knows nothing, remembers nothing. They grow up as an adult in a society full of suppressive people, fearful people, and they can't remember anything. The body grows up, they learn what they learned growing up on Earth, and they have a devil of a time trying to just recollect what they know is just out of their reach. They just know they used to know a lot more than this down on Earth. Can't quite reach it, you know? So we work with the first half of the word human. Why? You can feel it vibrating the center of your brain when you do it. It rattles your skull in a good way. And it opens a door. It is not a psychic doorway. It is far beyond that. It is not psychic, meaning that it's not part of positive and negative streams opposed to each other, which are unreliable. It is the core energy of the universe itself that is not positive and negative, pure positive, far beyond it, that we link with through the hue. And it takes a little time, in earth terms, for a person to begin to work with this and telepathically begin to link again to the source behind all life. That source doesn't exist in the physical universe. It doesn't exist in the astral universe. It doesn't exist in the void known to most Buddhist monks. It exists in a plane far above that. And we, all of us running bodies on earth today, originally came from there. And our job, our purpose is to remember how to return to that source. While the body's still alive, you don't have to kill a body to go to heaven. That's the whole point. You should be able to do that while the body you're running is investigating where it is made of matter on a particular planet, different plane, to come up with new ways of doing things. And when you get insight into that, you bring it home. You share it with the ocean of sound and light, the core source, prime creator. And then it has new ways of doing things for the benefit of all life. But it relies on us as individual beings comprised of the same energy as it to do this. And people on earth and people in the lower dimensions of time and space have not been doing this for billions of years, except a few exceptions. Because of the way it was constructed, it's really closed people down. It's made them forget. So what's underway now through the hue that didn't happen before is designed to reverse all that. And that energy has already been set in motion from the higher worlds down through the lower planes of time and space and moving through planet Earth. So I'm not worried about the future of this planet. I don't live in fear of any kind. And that's normal. All I'm doing is setting an example, staying in a stable energy field and putting it out in the world so people eventually can pick up on it and then leap into it inside themselves and remember who and what they are. It's not one of these, never was. What a person is that people call soul has never, ever been a human body. Runs them, it can forget, it can think it's one, it can feel like it's in one, it can be trapped in them. It can create its own trap if it's convinced through fear to do that, through the misdirection of the imagination. Because this omnipresent field of energy out there between the planets and sun, moon, the stars, and up in the galaxies that appears black to human eyes is a white golden light to soul looking at it from the inner eye, the third perception. This core soul of being, the white core. You know, the third eye, the third ear, that's all just the Atma hearing and seeing things in 360 degrees everywhere around it. Human being is that, not this. They got that all wrong on Earth because they think they're bodies. This runs at 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit average. It is a hydrocarbon-based, carbon-based body. It's a genetic form that was developed over billions of years by very advanced beings on many dimensional levels to be able to handle the higher faculties of this spherical Atma. So it can run a body on a planet like Earth and know who it is that's this while it's running it. And that's a problem for people on Earth, big one, because they've forgotten all about that altogether. And they're afraid to remember it, terrorized often. Some people just justify, oh, I can't remember what I do when I'm out of my body at night because if I do, demons will get me. That kind of backward thinking. No, they've got it all wrong. They're on Earth with no memory of who they were before they were born. Demons already got them. You can't get any lower than that. The only way up for people, the only way for people to go now on Earth is up. To reverse all that, to memorize, to remember who they are, to recover who they are, because right now they think they're material matter running around a body that grows old and dies. And then something they call soul, they don't even know what it is. They think it's something the body, who they think they are, has tucked away somewhere, that it's going to go when the body dies somehow and it's going to be saved by God, and later they'll know what they are. There's no later in eternity. There's only now, and knowing what you know now. What being manifests on earth knows and shares is what they know as an Atma when they're not in this body. That is enlightenment. People have asked me, what is self and God realization? Let's call it, what is self and Atma, parentheses, God realization. Okay, self-realization is knowing what you are as a soul, as an Atma. It's spherical energy because the planets, the moons, the suns, and the stars are round. They're patterned after their makers, their creators, which is us. Us meaning the same energy as a sphere made out of the source, prime creator, supreme being itself, on a smaller scale, like a drop of pure water in a mighty ocean, is supposed to co-create new ways of doing things and go back and share it. That's the reason for and purpose for our existence. How many people are doing that on Earth, knowing that? So it's important that they understand, and they will one day, not too far off, when beings come here and exemplify and demonstrate as human beings what they know that people on Earth don't dare know, scared to know, and all that. So people on Earth are going to need a massive amount of help from outside this planet to fix this place. They're too far down in forgetfulness to fix it on their own now. We'd already had a nuclear war and blown up everything here by the people who made those decisions to do that. Classified, they never told the public. If they'd been allowed to get away with it, they'd have blown this place up a long time ago. And they know they're not allowed to get away with it, but still they perpetuate the myth, the lie, the deception, the dishonesty. Any kind of dishonest practice is negative. There's no such thing as constructive deception and dishonesty. It's a negative nature, and according to the laws of basic physics, every action, dishonest, deception, dishonest, will create an equal but opposite reaction in space-time. Because when these people who lead this world put out in deception, dishonesty, control, and fear, and elitist kind of consciousness, they're putting out in the imagination a negative field of energy. What they don't realize, they know it's the law of physics, but they don't understand how it applies to them personally or collectively. They're sending out into this field of toroidal, primal, zero-point energy, energy of the universe, which is a living creative force that supports all galaxies, stars, and everything. And they're telling it to create deception, dishonesty, and negative things to come back on them. It is a co-creator, this thing people call divine spirit. It is completely unbiased. It is meant to create whatever we imagine in it as beings, not the brain and body, right? So your imagination is key. If people imagine good for themselves and their family and terrorful Armageddon and God's going to punish those that aren't saved and send them to hell, that's the kind of thing they're creating for themselves. And it will simply oblige them. It'll create into reality both good and bad. That split current we talk about. So we want to work with an energy that is beyond, deeper than positive and negative opposites. We want to work with an energy that can create, inform that which will be beneficial to all life. And then there's no karma, no law of physics affecting people in a suppressive way like it does now on Earth. So when I go into the hue, as you know, for the radio show, we do so much. And the private sessions I do, which are extremely rare, that don't involve the monetary systems of this planet at all. They are recorded. They're not on YouTube. They're not on Facebook. Nobody knows it's going on. People go on experiences over time to discover what they've been deliberately made to forget. And they do it of their own free will, awakening true free will, and they do it through exercising the higher and proper utilization of their creative imagination. And they begin to undo the trap they are in for themselves through direct experience. This is very important because once a person does that, it can't be taken from them again by anyone, anywhere, ever. This is something people have to find out and discover for themselves. Or it's just more data. It's just somebody talking, you know. I can tell people all day long about the hundreds of millions of planetary systems in our galaxy, just in this parallel dimension of the physical universe that exist out there and how they live. Won't do anybody any good until they have some direct awareness of it themselves. Then it will do them some good. So, to answer your question, how do we get fear gone? Well, when people work with the hue, this is something they need to understand. First of all, think of it simplistically. Don't make it complicated. Consider that the universe was set up hundreds of billions of years ago with a fail-safe. A certain thing that beings in any body, human, humanoid, and other races as well, could do to open a door that's sacred, you might say, in the center of their brain. In human beings, it's called the pineal gland. The same gland puts your body in automatic and runs the heart and lungs and air and blood circulation when you're gone at night. Now, the real trick is, how do you bring back full awareness of what you're doing at night when you're out of your body and the body's asleep? How do you bring it back in the morning, what people call dream travel? How do you do it? Well, number one, if you're afraid to do it, you're not going to do it. If you believe you can do it, but you don't know, there's doubt. And behind doubt is anger. And behind anger is terror. Subconsciously, you won't do it. If someone's told you that a demon will get you if you get out of your body until you die and go to heaven, then you're not going to do it because you believe there's some power beyond you that is more powerful than the source behind all life, some evil that somehow has power to trap you if you do that. That's nonsense. Tyrant kings put that out to control people. Obviously, they controlled the priestcraft of this planet. Because if the priestcraft of this planet didn't obey them, they were killed. No lawyers, no judges, they were just slaughtered. That kind of thinking abuse of human beings is not native to this planet. It was imported here from other worlds where they are like that. Most of the races in space in this galaxy are benevolent, and they work together. Not all. A few are tyrant races, and they're being dealt with. They're being quarantined now not to come back to this world. Nobody in any power on this planet did that. That was a decision made off-world to extricate the negative influences of these beings from people here. Now you've got a whole planet run by governments and people who have been affected in a negative way without their awareness, running things and making decisions. That's a problem. They'd still destroy this world if they could. So we need to get that handled, that fear that drives people resolved. The best way to do that is when they're out of their body at night and in a more expanded state, free from the fears of loss of a body. They're met with beings approach them that give them an uplifted feeling and help them see the truth of letting go of imagining incorrectly and trapping themselves. And over time, that person wakes up in the morning a changed being. Decisions get better based on proper reasoning and not on fear. Now, if you approach changing the world in this way, you can transform it without destruction. To pray to something like what people call divine spirit or a supreme being is really a very childish state of begging it for favors, trying to placate it with your false humility, to tell it you'll do this and that for it if it will give you what you want. People don't realize that what they're praying to, this Holy Spirit, is a living energy. It's not a single individual being. It's a living energy that is in everything, under everything, out in the void of space, between planets and moons and stars and suns and galaxies and dimensions and higher dimensions. It's one energy. It's a living conscious energy, and it's a co-creator with us. That means whatever we imagine in it, it will bring into reality. Good or bad, as a teacher. That's the old way it's been working. And it's not worked because Atmas, or beings like us, have been trapped in the lower dimensions of time and space in bodies on planets like Earth, and they've not been fulfilling the reason they exist. That's changing. When I do that, it's helping turn on something in the pineal gland to get the body to go into the trance state called sleep. And when that happens, the being does not have to go to sleep with the body. It can stay completely alert while the body goes to sleep. And this is what I endeavor to do as a direct experience in these guided journeys we take on your radio show. All right?
Yes.
When I go through these hues, first half of the word human, keep it simple. Wherever that came from, it's in the first half of the word human being. Hue man, hue woman, hue child, hue animal, hue plant, whatever. It's simply a way for a being, not the body, to cause a certain doorway to open through the pineal gland so more of the awareness of who we are can be brought to this body that never learned it. It's not in your brain. You didn't grow up with it. So it has to come from some higher aspect of yourself and brought here. Enlightenment isn't about escaping to some higher heaven. No such place exists where people can go and sit on their duff and play harps and pick flowers all day, pleasing the Supreme Being. How long would that last before you got bored out of your mind and went nuts? Higher realities are very active places. In the higher realities, people don't sleep. They never get fatigued. There is no night and day. It's constant energy, like each one of us. When you work with the hue, and at first it's difficult for people because they have so much lethargy, so many attitudes that keep them from actually getting off their rear end and exercising higher faculties to bring them back into consciousness. As you know, it takes a little effort on a person's part to work with the hue and turn on things that have been shut off for maybe 500 million years. In lifetimes they've lived and they didn't have it on in any of those lifetimes. You cannot destroy one of these. What a person really is in the body, you can put a hydrogen bomb and set it off, and this thing will just sit in it. Won't hurt it at all. Because a hydrogen bomb, when it breaks apart, the nucleus of, say, plutonium or something like that, and releases all this energy, splits apart the atom, so to speak, has nothing to do with the energy that supports the universe. It's on a slower vibration. It's made of matter. It's atomic. It's nuclear. Yeah, you can blow up a physical body, but you can't kill an atom. It's impossible. It's not made of matter of the lower worlds. It isn't destructible. It is energy, but not as it's known yet or remembered to be known yet on Earth. That's what we really are. I don't care how many lifetimes in stupidity a person keeps reincarnating with no memory. Sooner or later, the Atma is going to realize that that whole pattern, something wrong with it. That whole reincarnation to become perfect, that whole Maya or illusion thing. They get disenfranchised with it, disillusioned by it, and then they start seeking real answers, like you did, like I did, like anybody does. And then they start crossing paths with beings and things that can really help them unravel this knot of unknowing fear. And that's what we're doing. When people work with the hue, and they're in the back of the Sayres Agenda book, as you know, which is this one. And this says this is not for resale because this is a prototype book. I just show it as an example. This little gray thing won't be there on the cover. You can see a mile-long ship in the ice rings that make up the rings of the planet Saturn in our solar system, right here. These are scout craft, 3 semi-spherical pods underneath, little anti-gravity light around both of them, some mile-long cylindrical as a bridge control on each end. It's for going through interdimensional doorways across vast areas out here and between different parallel dimensions in the physical universe. So that's what this is for. The Sayres Agenda has in the back of this book, a special technique section involving the hue that applies to the prologue, one for it, and one for each of the 29 chapters. As hidden truths revealed in this book, and you have dreams, you wake up, you start to remember stuff in your meditations, your contemplations, your daily life, and you go, oh, what was that? What was that light I just saw? And you go back and you find a chapter here, and you go, oh, yeah, that's revealed right here. Then you do the technique for that chapter. Maybe you do it every night for 10, 15 minutes a night, and you stay with it with some discipline. And then the information that's revealed here becomes yours. You begin to recover it. And you get help to do that. And the only way for people to do that is to do it, not talk about it. You know, so
before you go to the next book, I like to say, I read the book too, and I have great awakening experience. I think it would be great if your book could be on a movie, you know.
Well, their screenplays are written for them, so that's heading in that direction. This is the Emerald Doorway. On the cover, as Perry's pointed out many times, this is what an individual Atma or soul looks like. Doesn't look like one of these or this. This is a biological entity. This is running. This is what we've always been, and it doesn't carry it in your back pocket. This guy doesn't, if he thinks that this is something that he is that will survive, he thinks of himself as looking in a mirror, and I'm a body, and I've got a soul. So he thinks it's tucked in his, he doesn't know where it is or what it is, but he believes that this will live when this goes, but he identifies this with this and thinks that he's this that has one of these. That's backwards. He is and always has been one of these, and it has one of these temporarily. So when you really begin to see what we look like, that is not physical, it has layers, teardrop-shaped layers, and each one of these different colors of the light spectrum, from white core to a golden interior that surrounds this, protects it, is an individual higher faculty of being. And these different levels represent different dimensions of the grand multidimensional creation, which are mirrored in each being. So this is the first book of the Parallel Time Trilogy. There it is.
Yeah, the teardrops.
Yeah, you got the one with all the teardrops on it now, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
No, it's the old one.
Yeah, you see how the one on the book has more?
Yeah.
That's why I sent you that, so you'd get, because the artist who did that sent me that as the final, but it wasn't the one that ended up on the book. There's one even more refined than this. I sent it to Perry, so she'll have it.
Yeah, each teardrops represent what the experience of life we have.
Yeah, causal plane, mental plane, astral plane, mental, etheric. They're all there. And we carry the awareness of lives we're running on multidimensional levels as an individual, single Atma or soul with us. Now, those memories can be suppressed out of fear or awakened when fear is turned off. When I do the hue, its function is to turn off subconscious fear. So people can put the body to sleep and go with me on one of these journeys. And they'll find they're able to do that. When they're working with the hue, there's a new ray of consciousness blended into this omnipresent living force in the void of space. And it's a consciousness that is on its way to retiring evil as a failed experiment, replacing it with the motivation to only use the imagination to create new ways of doing things that will be of uplifting benefit to all life. Environment, air, water, disease, length of life, getting in and out of bodies, also meant for the benefit of people on other worlds, other dimensions. That's the way we should be, to be normal. So, when I go into the hue, to mention too, these, how do I put it? There are a few beings on earth we're working with who have great amounts of funds, money, who are beginning to realize they can't take it with them. They want to do something right with it. We're working with them, and they're going to find one of my videos on YouTube or one of these shows. They're going to contact me because the way they can help best is to rechannel some of their funds in a way that will help change this whole planet. So I'll put out on this video for those beings who we're working with who know who they are. When you get the courage to contact me, your life will change more dramatically than you can imagine, and it will benefit all life. So we're going to head these things towards feature film production in a practical way. I have what's called Parallel Time, the short movie, which is a 15-minute film with a full symphonic score, which takes elements of the Emerald Doorway Book 1, this trilogy. These characters, this little guy here, Etta, who is he's a Dren. He's not human. He's not from Earth. He's like this little creature with green skin, levitating with his tail glowing like a crystal opal in sunlight, big bulbous blue eyes. He's very kind. He's not carbon-based. He's silica-based. He's not from Earth. He's telepathic, has a photographic memory. This little guy has more courage. If you befriend him, he would die for you to protect you. He's not even from Earth. He exemplifies the greatest qualities of human being that humans on Earth don't even exemplify yet, because they don't even understand it. They don't remember. But this little guy, one of these ships up here with the 3 semi-periodic pods and a parallel dimension are represented in that first short feature film. It's short feature film that has 3 elements of characters from this trilogy, which is a huge project, trilogy of films, 3 hours each. Mm-hmm. I can just show and display in that short film elements from this before these are even shot, which means the short feature film has to be developed. The CGI gets a character in a motion capture suit like Andy Serkis did for Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and portray even his voice exactly as he'll be in the feature films, and the ship and the parallel dimension on Earth. And this box that washes ashore, a guy opens up, he's transported to this parallel, one actor. That way I can put that out as a DVD and sell it with the book, whatever, long before these films are actually produced, developed, and shot. And then I have another screenplay called Who's Dreaming Me Anyway? ? Which is designed for someone like maybe Jim Carrey to act in one day, when it can be done properly, when it can present it to him properly. And that particular project is like a first director's debut type thing for me. It is like what Hollywood calls ultra low budgets, like 25 million. It's a lot of money. But when they're doing $150 to $200 million films, that's ultra low budget. So that's kind of a progress. And then the screenplays for this were written long before I wrote the books based on them. Most people don't do things that way. This was done this way. What's revealed in the books is a lot more depth and more territory for the actors, for the people portray the characters of the book, than you can put in a 3-hour movie. But all the elements are here. And the 3-hour films, screenplays, are designed to really work one deeper level to another from one film to the other in advance. This one right here, I'm writing the screenplay now based upon my own book. And that's going along very well. So I'll have that ready as well. So it can be developed for feature film and or episodic TV. Anyway, when anybody with any brains, half an ounce of sense, reads either one of them, they're going to see the filmic potential in them. They could not miss it. So I'll just put that out because Perry requested that I do that.
Yes, because I like to see it as a movie, Scott. That can help the human on Earth to be awakened faster.
Well, I put in the paralleltime.com, the main website of 4 that I have. If people become inspired to contact me through the contact page at that website, who are in a position to either fund this work or open a door for agency representation, very practical approach, then they can reach me very easily along those lines. It's in the back of it's in one page of the Parallel Time website, but I doubt many people will find it and read it. It's in the contact page. I think I mentioned it somewhere. But I'll make that known on your radio show for the first time.
Yes.
I'm not preaching nothing. I'm not begging anyone for anything, because I cannot be bought with money or power or fame. I want people who are sincere, who want to work with me on this, come out of the woodwork. One funder already did for some time, and then he went on his own way because of this pandemic thing. But this isn't going to be forever. And a much larger situation is being prepared to do this work. I know this for a fact. Now it's up to the people we've contacted to have the courage, take the risk, and contact me. Okay?
Yes.
If they
I
read
think
the books and they get some experience and we go on this journey and they start to work with it, they'll understand for themselves why it's important. I won't have to tell them anything.
God, I can't say enough the experience I have. I mean, awakened experience I have from you, with you, and from many beings. Has changed my life a lot. Dropped many fears. And happier life.
Yeah, I mean, because if you turn off fear, if you work with the hue enough, fear, what's going to happen is even if you've got a subconscious tyrant program running in you, you've carried with you for 500,000 years, which means it happened to you in a history you don't know. And then the being keeps reincarnating bodies with an automatic program that tells it to forget, 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 forget. Okay. It's like how to keep a political prisoner forever in prison after you first capture them. That's all reversible. You can't destroy the being, but you can keep them from remembering who they are and thinking they're bodies, living and dying over and over again. We want to get rid of that subconscious nonsense.
Scott, and beside that, it is fun to remember, to recall what it is like about like universe, like myself, and experience. Just happen that is some experience just come up with beings and show me around. Teach me the things that I have
Let me ask
forgotten.
you this: when you first crossed paths with me, it was you who had the courage to override your subconscious program, which was designed to keep you from ever contacting me, and somehow you did it anyway. And when you first contacted me and I started sharing this with you and taking you on journeys, you had your doubts and your fears. You didn't know if it was going to work, but over time, you started to apply some of these things to yourself, fix things that were broken, mend your imagination, begin to work with it properly. Because from here, even in your life, more has yet to come, a lot more. So work is all based on direct knowing experience, or direct knowing perception, or direct knowing certainty. Okay?
Yes.
When you have direct knowing perception, it means you are, as a being, awake enough to look out into the universe, plug into the omnipresent hue underlying everything, 0 point energy, toroidal energy, energy of the universe, connect with it and begin to remember. Direct knowing perception leads to direct knowing awareness. You're aware that you're perceiving it. That leads to direct knowing certainty, which comes about where you recover enough knowing of what you are and its faculties, the Atma, not a body, and you're certain of that even while you're living on earth. That starts to change a person's life dramatically. And it comes with a certain protection that's woven into the omnipresent living energy of the hue itself, which means when a person starts to work with it, there's a certain protection that flows through it that no negative nature in or out of bodies, negative beings in or out of bodies, or misuse of technology on or off earth can affect. You get a kind of a shield going with it because it was set up in the beginning this way. All you're doing is connecting back to the source directly. When you hue, you're actually directing into the one energy that's out in the universe. And then it connects to its source, far above the void known to most Buddhist monks, many planes above that, directly connects right to it. And then you're in contact with what people call the source, prime creator. And it begins to help you unravel this knot. And that knot could be several billion years old or longer.
Scott, I can't thank you enough for this. It's not only the radio show, it's not just the private session, but you take me deeper. I have no words to explain, Scott. This is life.
Let's make this long radio show. The longer, sometimes it's good, people want, sometimes when you contact a radio station, I'll be on another one I told you about on Thursday. They want, the questions to be in a simple bullet point, like 5 or 6 questions, right? They want it simple, and they want it simpler to dumb it down, to water it down to where it meets their own impatience and fear of knowing the truth. They keep everything watered down. So I wanted to make sure that the questions I use on that show are succinct, precise, because then they are very differently worded than anything anybody's ever heard on this world from anyone. And they know that when they hear it, that's, what does he mean? For instance, a woman that's going to do the show says, what is your soul? Y-O-U-R. The correct question is, what is soul? Not what is your soul? Because as a being, as Scott, I don't have a soul somewhere that I don't understand. I am a soul running this human body. I am a soul running this body. It's the other way around. Just by changing that word. What is soul? What am I? What is Atma? Because people on earth think backwards. They think in terms of somehow being a body that has a soul somewhere. They just put away somewhere. They don't understand. It's over here somewhere. Pull it out later when you die. No. They need to become aware while they're running a body what that is that they are. Know it and run the body and be able to get in and out of it. They do it every night anyway, but they don't remember in the morning very much.
But on this part, I would like to share my own experience, not only I do the show with Scott, but I had many experience with a lot of fears too. And you said many times, we never die as a being, as Atma, we never die, right?
Yeah.
But people said we have to live this physical body we call near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I had like 7 or 8 times this kind of experience until now I can drop fears, I understand what you said exactly and have no fear of death, This is part of my experience.
Well, once you have no fear of death, it makes it possible for you with your imagination, the way you change consciousness is when you don't have fear of death or when you can turn it off consciously. Oh, that's fear coming up. No, I'm not going to give that energy. I'm not going to imagine with it. It's a choice. The more you do that, the more it stops having any influence over it. Program's still there, but it doesn't turn on anymore. Then you can start creating crossing paths with not just me, but wondrous beings I work with that have never been born on this planet, aren't even from here, and they're master teachers out in the cosmos. They become available to us when we stop acting like baby, spoiled, biased, bigoted, prejudiced little people who decide that our way of belief has to be projected on everyone else, religious and all that. Because there is no representation on those other worlds anywhere in creation, billions of galaxies on multiple dimensional levels. There's not a single representation on any of those worlds of the religions that are on this earth. They are only on this earth. And they're very limited understandings of almost everything. So we want to get over that old way and leap into knowing. Take faith, work it, take it, leap into knowing. Because as individual beings or Atmas, souls, we have the ability to know what the supreme source is. We call it supreme, but that's a tyrant term. Supreme means dominant over everything. You must worship it or else. What I try to share with people, they'll know it rings true for them deep inside, is that the source behind all life that they pray to, they're usually praying to one of these tyrant rulers in one of the lower planes, dimensions of time and space, who have been over time set themselves up that way, demanding worship. But that isn't the source itself. It's much higher up than that. And that source never required or requested or encouraged anybody to worship it ever. It would not allow you to do that. It encourages that we respect the source from whence we all come and each other and all life. That is divine love. Respect for all life. It's not the mushy attachment of man and woman, child and pets, and it is respect for all life. To respect all life, you have to be aware of what the life is that's beyond this world, or you can't respect it. You see, so we need to wake that up. Understand that vast majority of beings outside this world, in our little galaxy among billions, understand respecting all life. We need to wake up at least to their level in order to play with them. I can't make that clearer.
Scott, on many journeys that you took us, on private sessions too, you took us to meet like Source too. Source is different from God, what people on earth say. So I would like everybody to recall, to go back to this experience, to remember who they are and to meet the real Source,
Well, let's go on a journey. We're still recording. I'm still recording this, so I can send it to you and you can get it on YouTube and your channel. When I start this process, I ask that people, whoever will hear this recording later, before they play it, set aside some time in a couple hours somewhere where they won't be disturbed by husbands and wives or family or kids, just a little alone time with a cup of tea, a little meditation time somewhere, a little recorder, maybe some headphones, and then play it back. any way you can. What I ask is that people remember when they go to sleep at night and their body starts snowing and they go unconscious, I'm asleep. And then they wake up in the morning and they don't remember anything. That they're actually leaving their body every single night. Every single person on this planet, it's the most perverse person to the most evolved. They all do this, but they will go out of their body to those places that their mind and negative energies and attitudes will draw them to. If people are really negative and tyrants, they're going to go to the lower astral plane, next major division up. And there's some really hellish areas in that division above the physical universe. And then there's very pure areas of the astral plane where all emotion comes from. We want to go to those areas, not the dark areas. What people imagine and do in their life here will take them to an appropriate place. It's all based on their imagination. The omnipresent living energy behind life will simply take them where they're thinking, where they're imagining. So tyrants remain thinking like tyrants. And they suppress others out of fear that if they don't do it to them first, it'll be done to them. That's the thinking of a tyrant. And it's just a program. And it's not real. I ask that people lay down or sit up, take several deep breaths, breathe it out. And when they do, you're letting out fear, turning off fear, deciding to simply ignore your concerns for a short time. Deciding to not worry about your family, whether you have a disease, whether you've got no money, where the future of the planet's going, what your ultimate destiny is, afraid of death, what will happen when I die, all that just now, for a short time, you're putting aside. You're choosing not to focus on that. You can take it back when we come back from the journey. And then I ask that people imagine someone they love and respect and grateful that whatever that is in their life. It can be a person, place, or thing, but it means when you imagine it, a child's smile, a beautiful hummingbird, a waterfall, another planet, if you know how to do that. And when you do that, you're able to imagine someone you love and respect and are grateful in your life, and it makes you feel warm inside. It uplifts you. So, now that triggers something in the pineal gland, the center of the brain. I'll give you an example. When someone imagines fear of the future, fear of the coronavirus, fear of something, when they go to bed at night, they're going to go out of their body to some place that incorporates that negative nature. They call it a nightmare. They wake it up in the morning. So strong is the negative energy that people often remember the negative. If you go to bed at night deliberately turning off these things and putting them aside, and then you start working in the hue for 10 or 15 minutes, carrying with you into it this image of something you respect and love and grateful in your life, then it's setting up the frequency and vibration, connects in through the you to the omnipresent energy of the universe, and takes you to that kind of a place where teachers and other beings of high evolution and great and wonderful love can help, can assist each individual to untie the tight knot of the subconscious mind until there isn't one. Because a normal human being in other worlds does not have a subconscious mind at all. Subconscious means there's something to be put in there you're not aware of that can control you. And so it's an artificially created mind. And it's not meant to be permanent or to last forever. The Atma is meant to overcome it and dissolve it away at some point. When I send out these hues in higher tones, it is to contact, well, what it's really doing is, for myself, my own body goes into the trance state called sleep. As a being, I remain fully aware, hover above the body, and then I send out these hues to each of the Atmas that are running your bodies, each of you. But I don't just do it on the physical level. I send it out to the life you're living in the astral dimension, next plane up, or you have a body and a life you're living there you've long since forgotten. And the causal, the mental, and etheric planes, 4 major divisions above the physical universe. When we get all those body forms you're running, you're no longer aware of, but have the capability of remembering, to go to sleep so that you, the spherical Atma, can go across the void into the upper worlds, to begin to remember why you exist. When I say the trance state, I do not mean hypnosis. I say it as a trance state because the body consciousness is in a trance. That means it's simply turned on automatic to run the heart, lungs, and heart rate and blood circulation at a distance while you're gone. There is a link of an energy sort through the hue connected to the pineal gland, so the body will stay fine and safe when you're far away from it, out in the multidimensional universe, exploring, recovering, awakening. I'll begin those tones now. You. 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 There's a certain presence of energy, non-physical, non-nuclear, non-atomic. There's a kindred spirit to all beings. Not the brain, not the body. Understand this. There is no mechanism in a human brain amongst the billions of brain cells that has a motion picture camera and movie screen upon which you can imagine and see things. The human brain is not designed to do that. It has other functionality. When anybody imagines anything, it is the spherical being running that body through the pineal gland, running that brain, that sees with the imagination. And it has the ability to connect telepathically to the omnipresent one living energy behind and supporting all that exists in the entire grand multidimensional creation. Because that one energy is behind and supporting all of it, just like us. When you daydream and you see something in your mind's eye, let's put it that way, while your eyes are looking at a blackboard in a teaching room or out walking around and you're walking down a street and you see things around you, but you're imagining something else. The brain is not doing that. It's busy running the eyes to see light, taking it in from the physical environment on this parallel dimension where the molecules that make up your body vibrate at the same time rate as everything you see around you. So you only see that frequency. The Atma, the real you, people call soul without knowing what it is or even what it looks like, sees and knows. It is from the source behind all life. It is comprised of an eternal, undestructible type of energy that comes into creation on a level, on a dimension so far above the void, known to certain esoteric groups on Earth. Most of them, because they think that's the end all of everything, do not attempt to imagine something further. And so they never become aware of it until that changes somehow in their life. When you daydream, let's just call it that, you can see yourself hovering near the ceiling wherever you live, looking down on that body, sitting there with its eyes closed or lying down. And it begins to naturally go into the trance state called sleep, which means it's going into the same place you put it in every night anyway, like a master expert. Isn't it funny that people can put the body to sleep on automatic, a very complex process, and not know anything? To put the body to sleep, the pineal gland has to be told to secrete serotonin, make melatonin, which are chemicals, enzymes, and other things which make the body run on automatic when you're gone. And there's still an energy link tied to that body and that brain from the core, the white core of the spherical structure of what you really are as a being. Perfectly safe, no problem. You can just as well imagine being at 10,000 feet in the atmosphere. In the daytime, looking down on your city or your countryside, focusing on the home where you live, wherever you are, laying outside, laying in a car, on a bed, in a chair, in a house, in a room. And yet you can see what it looks like up in the atmosphere at 10,000 feet, looking down over the city and the countryside. You can still be hovering as a spherical being of energy above the body near the ceiling. And you can be hovering at 10,000 feet, both simultaneously at the same moment. Because an Atma can do this. Physical brain and body can't be in more than one place at one time. But the Atma is multidimensional capable. And imagine yourself being in space, outer space above the planet in the void of space, like a satellite, like the space shuttle, or even higher than that, floating in space as a spherically luminous being. It is not made of matter. It doesn't feel heat and cold. It will not be affected by the radiation from the sun. And when you're there, you can look down and see yourself and immediately see out through all directions in 360 degrees what it looks like to be at 10,000 feet where you live. And then what it looks like to be hovering above your body. All three at the same moment. And you can move freely between them. So for now, be in space. And when you look around you, you'll see there are a number of other beings, spherical beings like you, hovering in a circle around a very dear friend of mine. This is Ambassador Torellian, and he is of the Se-Rays human race. He is not from Earth. He's never been from Earth. But he has visited Earth very many millions of years ago. He's showing you now as spherical beings hovering the center of a circle of a dozen people. Up above space, looking down on the planet. From here, you see the polar ice caps, the barren moon with all of its meteor craters all over it. Does not turn on its axis, moves in a circle around the sun, has no atmosphere to speak of, very little gravity because it doesn't turn. And you can see the Earth as beautiful oceans and land. You don't see any aircraft from up here. You don't see any walls or buildings or cities, just land, oceans, polar ice caps, and the moon, and the sun in the distance. In space where we are, you know you've all seen a time-lapse photography taken from a satellite or the Hubble telescope of outer space, looking at the planet, what it looks like. Easy to see because you can imagine it by actually being above the planet. As an Atma, we are not limited by the speed of light or gravity. We cannot be affected by either because we are not comprised of nuclear material. We are energy, but we are not atomic in nature. You're not taught any of this growing up on Earth, so why should it be familiar with you? For those of us and for those of you that have done work with the hue over time, this has become familiar territory to you, recovering it once again as a being. Turelian, hovering in the middle of us, is a bright Atma, has a white core, layers of different teardrop-shaped lights, all that cover the spectrum of color as you would see through a prism. White light core, next layer is yellow, certain thickness of teardrops, individual Atma functions, individual capabilities, higher faculties, storing of memory, past lives, everything. The next layer up is orange, then red, then green, then blue, then lavender, then violet, and then surrounded by a golden white energy. Now, when you look at the golden white energy around Turelian, you see all 12 people surrounding him have the same kind of light. And then you begin to see a body take shape standing in space, projected from the white core of that Atma of Turelian. And it's 18 feet tall, human, elegant, trim, male, about 36, long, slightly curly blonde hair, big, beautiful eyes, in a Greek-type gown, looks like a Greek god. And he's got his two thumbs up, and all this is a kind of a mudra. It's a kind of an energy transmission through a form he's manifested for you to see that's like ours. And it puts out a stream of energy, a new ray in the hue, to provide a consistently safe, supportive energy so all of you can begin to grok, to understand, to recover, to remember what you're capable of remembering when you're above the planet and outside the atmosphere of that fear-ridden ball of misdirected human beings. That's why we come above the planet, to get out in space where none of that exists. The void of space around you, when you see a time-lapse photography of space shuttle shot of galaxies out in space, it looks black because human eyes from Earth, the genetics they have, can only see a small spectrum of light. And the higher frequencies of light appear black to you. But to you, the Atma hovering in space, it appears like a white, golden, powerful energy radiating between the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, between the billions of stars in our galaxy, between other galaxies, and up through the dimensions beyond the physical universe. And you can see the billion stars all around us that make up the Milky Way galaxy brightly twinkling in that golden white light energy that's behind it. And you can see everything clearly. As an Atma hovering here above space, this is easy for you to do. Remember, it's the Atma that sees with the imagination, not a human brain and body back on Earth. Then you look and see that you have a body form now beginning to appear in front of the sphere you are that looks just like you. Perfectly healthy, about 36, prime adult, but flawless. And that is so that you can see each of us standing around in a circle, 12 of us, so you can identify who it is that the sphere is that's running that form, like the one you have on Earth. But this one's made of pure energy. And it can stand in space without being affected by radiation, cold, or heat, or any of it. And you can smile and move it, and you can breathe and see and hear as if it was a real body. But this is one of the higher faculties or capabilities of each individual Atma or soul. And then you look around us, and you begin to see there are other beings beginning to appear here. They're beginning to form a sphere of beings that completely encompass Turelian and all 12 of us. There's over 100 of them, men and women, male and female, beautiful spheres of light and of physical form standing in front of them, in a circle around all of us, looking down towards a Turelian. These are all master teachers, what are called master teachers from worlds in the Milky Way that have been asked to join us here. And they come from many world systems on a number of dimensional levels. They are joining us on a journey to go above the lower dimensions of time and space. They also teach in what's called the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. That place exists above the void, known to many Buddhist monks and many other, certain other esoteric groups on Earth. And it exists between the fifth higher reality above the void and the sixth, and there are many more above that. It is a special parallel dimension created as a training facility for beings to begin to experience what is called a new ray of consciousness that is now running through and blended with the first sound or first word behind all creation, the hue. First half of the word human, hue woman, hue child, hue. It is a sound, whole, round sound the universe makes. Each individual Atma can hear it, not with physical ears, and see it, not with physical eyes, more vividly, more solidly, shall we say, than what they can detect through human capabilities and ears and eyes and sensory apparatus, that kind of thing. Getting used to seeing and knowing as the Atma again and not a body takes some doing. That mimics the actual sound of zero-point toroidal or universe energy. The void between all things floating in it is a living, conscious energy. Beings who can travel across the stars, even from galaxy to galaxy and between parallel dimensions in the physical universe. 144 of them, a certain number. Do this by working with this energy that is not nuclear atomic in nature. And if you don't work with that, you will not get very far out in space. The Atma that we are can move on that energy instantly, because it isn't nuclear, anywhere in creation, to other planets, to other dimensions across the void in the upper worlds, just as soon as it's aware enough to imagine what things look like there. That is the key. So I do these guided things in order to help people recover the ability to see what these realities are like that are not on Earth, that are not physical, that are not part of the body consciousness, that are a part of the Atma consciousness. Self and God realization. Self and Atma, parentheses, God realization, what are they? Self-realization is the awareness of you as a spherical being, not a body. This Atma realization, or what people call God realization, is aware of your purpose for existing as a being, as a trustworthy co-creator with the source behind all life itself. That is what it is, defined precisely. And it's infinite in the amount that you can go and awaken and expand in awareness of the source energy and how this works through all the parallel dimensions in a physical universe, astral, causal, mental, etheric, the void, the realm of the Atma, original home of soul, and the planes above it, to what we call the ocean of sound and light, which looks like a galaxy with a white core and spheres of beings rotating around it in a brilliantly lit blue void. And it's comprised of individual beings. The center of that is what you would call prime creator. We all come from that. Now we're in space above Earth. And when you look on Earth, you can see that it's beginning to change. Trellian and I are doing this, and for other beings. You're simply seeing Earth, the vibration of seeing it raised up another level or two. And you begin to see an Earth world form in the same place that has no polar ice caps. When you look at the moon, it's full of oxygen and clouds and rivers and little mountains and domed cities turning on its axis, moving around the planet. And there's the sun. This is in a third higher parallel dimension of the physical universe, where all matter vibrates at a slightly faster time rate than where we are when we're on Earth, we're most familiar with. This is an Earth that exists now in the physical universe. It vibrates molecularly at a higher time rate than Earth that you're familiar with. And you can see that there is a massive continent centered over the equator, stretches from left to the right hemisphere, half the planet, and extends upward towards the North Pole and downward towards the South Pole, curves slightly around about a third of the way from the North Pole and a third of the way below the South Pole. And when you look through the planet, which you're capable of doing as an ATMA, you can see there's another continent centered over the equator on the other side of the planet, 2/3 its size. That is Atla. The one in the front is Lemuria. This means that Lemurian Atlantis of this world were never destroyed by polar flips that cyclically occurred on the Earth that you're familiar with. This planet and that moon that is alive with life are prototypes. They have been there this way, not overpopulated, no pollution whatsoever, the atmosphere of the water, manned by master teachers and scientists from the Galactic Alliance and from master teachers from all over the multidimensional universe who can come there, many of whom have physical bodies on some world. And they teach in a big domed city on that planet, the base of a single snow-capped mountain. When you look down on that world and you see, look down the South Pole, you can see there is a crescent-shaped, luminous green beach, glowing, drawing you toward it. You can see it from space because you have telescopic vision. You're an Atma. And suddenly you look down and you can see your bare feet of this perfect form, sinking its wiggling toes into this tiny, luminous, emerald green sand. And it feels warm and cooling. The energy moves up your leg. Remember, this is an energy form that looks like you. It's pure energy. It's not physical matter. And it moves up through your smiling face. And when you look up, you're looking at a sphere of light, an Atma, you, hovering above this form it's created to experience the energy of this beach. It's transferred up to the top of the head, into the white core of your being, and then up into the green layer, one of the layers further out from the white core of your being. And it turns on some of those teardrops. These are higher faculties of recall and remembering. When you look down this beach, curved in towards this forest of jungle trees, and in the distance you can see off to the right a tall snow glacier-covered mountain, and up on a higher plateau down below to the left, a huge clear dome city covering 3 massive 4-sided golden-sided quartz-capped pyramids inside the dome. You can see it up there. And at the back of this curve of this beach, you can see a brown moss-covered path that goes straight back in the jungle. The trees are growing parallel to it. And it stops at a white marble floor you can see about a mile in the distance. And there seems to be some kind of a statue there in the center of it. And then that moss-covered path winds its way up the mountain until it enters that dome. When you look behind you now, you can see all 12 of us are standing along the curve of this beach. And Turellian, who's 18 feet tall in the form he's showing you, is standing with the ocean water up to his knees, smiling at you, 2 thumbs up. He's much taller than we are, so, better stand off shore a bit. The bodies you have here that you see are perfectly and flawlessly healthy. They are radiant energy that looks just like you. It is not an astral body. It is not a physical body. It is a projection of energy that looks just like you that comes from the white core of the Atma that you are. And you can do this to experience tactile, sound, taste, smell, sight, vibration, and everything that has to do with this parallel dimension on Earth, including the green energy that just moved up through into the core of your being. And then those bodies simply dissolve into light and are withdrawn into the white core of your being. There's 12 of us, but if you look up, you're going to see Turelian is now a sphere. And we're all moving up, circling him above this green beach. And then there's a sphere of 100 men and women of spherical atmos and their physical forms they're showing you surrounding us. And when you look up, you can see a vortex of green, blue, water-like light slowly whirling clockwise begins to form and then open into a tunnel that goes very far upward. And on the other end of that tunnel, you see a very bright blue atmosphere. And this sphere of being surrounding Turelian is moving upward in this tunnel, away from the green beach, away from the earth, at tremendous speed. When you look through the tunnel walls, you can see it's transparent. It's energy moving around us, and we've created a corridor through time and space, through the 4 lower dimensions of physical, astral, causal, mental, and etheric. And then it crosses a pale blue atmosphere. It's a void, separates the upper realities from the lower dimensions of time and space, and the tunnel continues past it to this brilliant blue atmosphere. And in an instant, you can see levels of galaxies passing below us. And then you see what looks like bright lights of stars, and then a pale blue atmosphere. And we're traveling as a sphere of beings in the void. And it seems infinite in every direction. There's nothing physical there. Nothing you can, no structure you can see. It's just energy. The void there isn't a lifeless void. It's living energy of the hue there too. There are beings who live in this void, but they would be very hard for you to see until you are more evolved to see them. They are there. And then we come across a white shoreline way in the distance that approaches us. Luminous white beach, as straight as an arrow, left and right, as far as you can see. The trees that look like jungle trees are made of crystalline, growing, luminous things. Fruit on them are like crystals. And you can see these birds come down out of the trees that have long V-shaped split tails. They're like a foot long, big bulbous blue eyes. They look kind of like a blue jay with rainbow-colored feathers, evenly blended. It's just beautiful. Dozens of them fly down on the trees, and we stop as a sphere of beings to listen to them gift us with this. They have beautiful singing voice. They sound like men and women's voices, perfect vocal cords, singing the hue on multiple levels. And they're singing beautiful melody for us. They have twin sets of bird wings, like a dragonfly, but they're birds, and they're hovering like a hummingbird. These are, and if you look above them, you can see spherical beings hovering, running these bird-like bodies to show us we can have any experience of what it's like. And these bird bodies have photographic memories, and they're telepathic. They are highly evolved genetic structures here. They are on what's called the Atma plane. That is the first major division above the void. The sound coming from that plane is of a single note of a flute, like a beautiful humming of millions of bees, very soft, and it just kind of, you can hear it flowing through the energy, and it's luminous. And then this tunnel of light continues up above there, and it opens up into a brighter blue, deep blue atmosphere, and we move up into it. We are now between the 5th and 6th major divisions above the void. And we come up into this blue atmosphere floating above, and we look down and see 6 snow-covered mountain peaks below us. And this tunnel of light dissolves and vanishes, and we are left floating high in the atmosphere, a radiant blue atmosphere. And when you look out in the distance in every direction, you can see a huge circular floating island or landmass. There is a brilliantly lit white luminous beach encircling the entire outer circumference of this mass. We are hovering high above the 6 mountain peaks in the center of it. Off to the west, there is a blue glass-like transparent tower, extending out of a very wide white marble floor. It comes up dozens of stories, and then there's a flattened spherical area, an administration area, and it comes up to a minaret-like point, and it's glowing. At the base of this white marble floor that it rises out of, there are white roadways that extend in every direction like the spokes of a bicycle tire. They go to the mountain bases and go through tunnels. They go into the hollow interior of these 6 mountain peaks inside this continent, and then out to the other side through tunnels, and they create roadways that end at the white beach in the entire circumference of this floating landmass. Everything here is luminous. When you look down at these roadways, you can see there are little turns to the right and the left all the way down them that go into little clearings in perfectly cultivated botanical paradises that have domes and pyramids and other crystal-like structures that are teaching facilities. And this goes on in the entire landmass. There are no moons or suns or stars here. Everything is self-luminous. When you look at yourself and the beings hovering here, we're all lit up. You can see physical forms that look just like you standing in front of this sphere that you are, the Atma, smiling, perfectly, flawlessly healthy, about 36. And you can breathe as if you have lungs. And when you breathe in this blue atmosphere, it passes right through you, through the white core of your being, and then you breathe out back into it. There's a connection. The energy that comprises each individual and the energy that makes up this blue atmosphere, if you look closely at it, you'll see a white golden light behind it, supporting it. The golden aspect of the white light is the new ray in the hue. It is designed from these upper worlds to move through the lower dimensions of time and space and through Earth at some point, to retire evil as an experiment, which is a failed experiment, and replace it with an energy that motivates all beings to create only that which is of an uplifting benefit to all life in the grand multidimensional creation, not just life on Earth. To be free, beings need to recover this higher purpose for their existing. When you have a body run in those lower planes, you are responsible for it, but it is an extension of the Atma, like it is here. You've just been made to forget all that and to doubt everything else down there. Up here, in this energy, there is nothing of any negative nature whatsoever that can be brought here across that void. That is impossible. As beings recover who they are, they begin to co-create new ways of doing things, like spiritual scientists with the 100 beings that encircle us. And then you see them move away, break up the circle, and they go off into the distance and sail down into clearings all over this massive land and enter different crystalline buildings because they instruct people here in new ways. When you look to the southwest, down upon this huge floating circular landmass, you can see there is a clearing down one of the roadways that divides that southwestern quadrant right down the middle, and in the middle of it, to the right, is a clearing. And in the clearing is a circle of crystalline structures, 12 of them. They have different colors, and they're shaped like a pyramid. The forms they present in this teaching facility vary according to the need. And we're suddenly going to find ourselves, all of us, in a circle of beings, 12 of us. Others joining us who are listening to this now that haven't even heard it yet, but will in space and time. And in the center of it is this floating massive orb of light, hovering above the ground. Around it are these 12 crystalline structures. They're spheres of light of different colors, transparent, hovering above the ground. And behind them are these beautiful, tall, today they look like oak trees, big, giant, luminous oak trees with spoon-shaped green glowing, blue and green glowing leaves. This big sphere of light looks like what's on the cover of the Emerald Doorway book, what the Atma or soul looks like. Only this is huge. To us hovering around it, it appears to be, I don't know, a dozen times larger than us. And it is what in the Emerald Doorway book is called the Ancient One. But what this is a manifestation of the source behind all life that exists in the very center of a dimension called the ocean of sound and light, many planes above here. And it is able to manifest itself here. And it looks in the structure as an individual being, just like us, hovering around it. White core, different colored layers. And it can communicate telepathically with each one of you. And it's telling you, if you listen, that the source behind all life is not an individual like each one of us. It is a composite being made up of the connection of all Atmas in all the multiverse, connected together at one moment and centralized in a certain dimension. And it has consciousness beyond that of the complete sum of its parts. And it can speak with you. And it will tell you, you are not meant to worship this center because you are made of exactly the same energy as it, individualized. As a spiritual scientist, you are meant to create in your journeys, in bodies and forms in the lower dimensions over time, new ways of doing things, which you are meant to bring back here and share with fellow scientists of an eternal nature. This means this field of energy that created the whole creation, this sound, this first word, this you, has a new energy running through it now that did not exist in all of creation, but about 8 years ago, Earth time, when it was first brought into existence. Why? To change the way the lower dimensions of time and space are run. Not destroy them. That's been done a number of times before, in hundreds of billions of years. No, it's meant to change the way they're run. The lower dimensions of time and space, like where planet Earth is, are meant to be gardens. They are meant to be mirrors of these upper worlds. Eventually, they are meant to not have any negative nature in them. All of us are meant to help bring that into reality. I will remain silent. This luminous being, with the 12 of you hovering around it, and the 12 spheres of light hovering behind that, are all 12 different energy manifestation rays of creation. All 12 are something you have once been very familiar with. The purpose of this visit is to help you remember. The purpose of this visit is to help you bring back to Earth, hovering above your body on Earth as a sphere, and sending a white golden stream of light into the pineal gland of your brain, and let it gently wash through you out into the world for your benefit and for the benefit of all life. So right now, as you're hovering there around this huge Atma type being, you know that you are moving this experience and downloading it into the brain that never had it on Earth. From here, you can hear the sound of the hue playing a hauntingly beautiful, lilting melody that inspires a golden heart. It inspires you to look favorably down upon the forms you have running in the lower dimensions of time and space. The ones that are sleeping on the different planes, you're not yet quite awake enough to remember, like etheric, mental, where thought moves all matter, causal, where causation does, astral, all emotion moves matter, physical, where effort moves matter. These are all you. It's meant to help them remember each other. The white core of this massive being floating there, surrounded by this beautiful circular clearing, is meant to help you recover the faculties of the rays of creation in awareness. The white golden light emanating from the core of this being, hovering in the center of us, is a new ray of awareness that exists in the upper worlds where no negative nature exists. And it's meant to transform the way the lower worlds are run. The worlds of time and space are meant to one day be mirrors of these upper worlds. Remember this. Remember this. Remember this. The white core of that being sends a white golden light into the white core of your being and brightens it. And then you're going to see in each layer that surrounds you as a being, some of these teardrops, these higher faculties, turning on in each layer. Each one of those crystal spheres of a different color hovering behind you above the ground. Behind them, these giant luminous oak trees. Each one of them represents what's called a silent mentor. They are the beings who run the mechanics and sustain the whole multiverse and the doorways between different realities, different dimensions. Galaxies in space, moons circling planets, planets circling suns, they maintain it. And you can see a being in a white kind of a robe, kind of like Greek gods and goddesses, male and female, standing above these spheres. And when you look at them, they appear human, different races, different skin colors, but you can see no facial features. Because when you look in the face, you can see multiple levels of galaxies turning on their axis. And above them, you see a spherical being, an Atma like us, that's running that form they're showing you. And it is a sphere 4 times larger than us and twice as dense, more layers of these teardrop capabilities. In the Hue Expansionary Academy, where we are in this training facility, for the first time, they are intermingling and co-creating with beings like us. In the past, they never had any direct association with us at all. They're learning how to care more for individual beings. In the past, they never really had any regard for the evolution of an Atma or individual like us. And they're learning from us this love and compassion for all life. Something's going on that's never happened before in the entire history of the grand multidimensional creation. Then you hear all around you, and you look down, and you see this blue-green vortex forming below your feet. The 100 beings that came here with us are going to remain to teach in this facility. The 12 of us surrounding Turelian are now moving as a group down the shaft of this light at tremendous speed until you see it open up, and you can see us all still hovering around Turelian, hovering above the Earth and the moon that has life and oxygen and atmosphere, and that world with Lemuria and Atlantis on the backside with no polar ice caps. And then you see it change to the one you're familiar with polar ice caps and a barren moon. And then you see yourself hovering at 10,000 feet in the atmosphere above where you live. And you're also hovering above that body as a spherical being. Look kindly down on that form you have on Earth. Send a little stream, tiny little stream of white golden light from the white core of your being down into the pineal gland in the center of your brain, and let it gently radiate through your whole brain, turning on more brain cells, giving you access to greater amounts of a fully operational 100% brain you have. Let it move through your body. Now let the hue as a sound, the new ray in it, white golden light, move through you freely for your benefit and for the uplifting benefit of all life. Decide to make it continuous and consistent. And then when you're ready, open your eyes.
Wow. Today we met with Source and silent mentors.
On the
Okay.
Atma plane, it's a little much to go way up into the upper worlds above there because, as you know from past journeys, if we go into the ocean of sound and light, many planes above the Hue Expansion Ray Academy, we can only stay there briefly to gain enlightenment and then return, or the physical bodies on Earth would cease to function. It's that far removed from anything to do with life on Earth. So we've just made a direct connection through all the forms we have above the void into the higher worlds, into the higher realities, into the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. And now we're back here. All this does is give people the visual understanding on Earth how to imagine going back to such a place. When they play this recording back a second time, they're going to get a lot more out of it the second time they do it, especially when they do this deliberately by making sure they're not going to be disturbed for a couple hours. And then just close their eyes, listen to the instructions, and just go on it again. And then let the experiences fall where they may, shall we say.
Correct. Scott, I have questions from the audience.
Sure, let's do them.
From Victor, the first question is, are the friends of outer space your friends, okay, the same as the ones advising governments?
Yes and no, because you're assuming that people from outer space are in direct contact on a, say, a diplomatic level or in a treaty level. Oh, that's been true of the past. And yes, the classified space program on this people and certain people on Earth can make direct contact with representatives of large off-world organizations, but they're not really advising them one-on-one at this point. They are meeting with them like we just did when those beings who run the world in a misdirected way right now because of the fear they carry, they will meet with them out of their body at night when their body's asleep, where they have a much more expanded state of awareness. And then they can get helped to recover who they are. And when they wake up in the morning, they begin to change. It's the same for them as it is for us. If we want to change this world and transform it, everybody that lives on Earth today, with the exception of those that would die anyway in the next week or month or few years, even when they're not on Earth anymore, as beings, they will be involved in co-creating this transformation voluntarily, of free will, because they have to ask for it. If they want to save their own ass, they're going to have to get their head out of their big egos, so to speak, and prejudiced and biased behaviors and minuscule belief systems that misdirect how they respect the source behind all life, because that's what it does. They need to rise up as conscious beings and remember more of their eternal nature, which is ageless. Because when people on Earth do that, the wisdom that is the ageless part of them starts pouring through their consciousness into this world. Then, you know, as those things unfold, the extraterrestrial races that have the technology understanding right in this physical universe to come here can help transform this planet. The technology to do it is easy for them. It's well known. They've done it on their own world systems. They know how to apply it to our world. They're not going to force it on anyone. We have to ask for it. And so far, the elite that run this world are too arrogant, too afraid to ask for it. They want to superimpose the US military view or the Russian view or the Chinese view on them and somehow get them to work with us, keeping the perverted natures that they've demonstrated on this planet, the deception, the dishonesty. It's not going to happen. We cannot bend them to our will. They're too far evolved. We've got to go the other way. As long as people on Earth realize this great host of beings out there in other worlds are kind, they don't want to run our governments, then they'll relax and let go and surrender themselves into their own higher nature. So we want to do it that way so that when the time comes, ships from thousands of them can land all over the planet. people can get out and walk amongst people, men and women from other worlds, highly trained, and help us. Duh. How else do the people think it's going to happen? You know? Just call it a new way of imagining things, because it's possible now to imagine co-creating with such beings, whereas 10 years ago, would never have been able to be done the way people are. Now it's possible to transform this world for the first time since its existence in all of the history of the grand multidimensional creation. This planet had to have one thing done to it first: the cessation or ending of its cyclic polar flips, which this planet has been doing. And that happens, it's violent, tears up the world, new continents rise, you wouldn't survive it. That has been permanently stopped by these silent mentors people met tonight. They have the mechanics. If they have the will to do it, they can simply stop it, the process that causes it, by rearranging a few orbits of things out in the galaxy. Very easy for them. That way, the people on Earth have the time, without this every 100,000 year interruption, to actually grow for millions of years like people in other worlds do. And then it'd be worth it to make permanent change here. So this whole idea of Golden Age to Iron Age and back again, which was the destruction of polar flips like Lemuria and Atlantis that were destroyed on Earth, we know, never happens in this third parallel dimension where the Lemuria and Atlatla exists, and a living moon. That is well-developed territory. Those are going to be, what exists there is going to be utilized as a prototype and superimposed over the Earth and the moon we have now, because the moon we have that's a lifeless, barren rock is not meant to stay that way. So such technologies and such beings that can do this do exist. But it makes sense for people on Earth to become aware of such things, at least the possibility of such things, to desire, to imagine such things. Because if they don't, they think there's somebody's just going to wave a magic wand and free a bunch of spoiled, childish people and set them free with all the subconscious spheres still running them. Because if that happened, people on this planet, through the misuse of their imagination, unknowingly, would put themselves right back in the same trap within a week. And this omnipresent force would co-create their own trap all over again. This is what we have to get out of doing, this bad habit, this wrong way of using our higher faculties. A natural human being should want to create new things, new ways of doing things for all life. The planet, the sky, the water, the birds, the animals, the sea, all of it. We are meant to be conscious custodians of this world. And naturally, if you look at it, people on Earth are not doing their job at all in that regard. They're not aware enough anymore to do it. They're capable of recovering that awareness. First, you have to raise the vibration enough so people want to know the truth, beyond what they've been taught, beyond what they believe. It's important that people understand that the religions they have on this planet do not exist outside of this planet. And the beings out there have a much, much, much greater understanding of what is Holy Spirit and what the source behind all life is, because they're conscious of it. That's normal. We need to become normal here on this planet for the first time. That is now possible. Okay?
Yes. Second question, the last question. Was Nikola Tesla guided or sent by those friends?
He was not from here. I'm not. But I got news for you. Everybody on Earth isn't originally from here anyway. Why? Because human beings never evolved on this planet. There's not a race represented here that evolved here originally. They evolved out in the galaxies and other galaxies in the race form they have now, billions of years, millions, billions of years ago. In this form. This is a very old form. It's not new. People in this form have been able to live here in this form for 65 million years since the dinosaurs were made extinct. You couldn't have had human beings living in a world like that because the dinosaurs would have just wrecked everything, ate everybody. They had to go first. Now, where's that missing history and the consciousness of every man, woman, and child living on this planet? Atmas run animals on this planet, and they're telepathic. Human beings are telepathic, but that's suppressed in them, so they call it intuition. It's not supposed to be intuition. It's supposed to be telepathic. It's the link we make one Atma to another through the medium of the hue between us that can't be messed with by negative and positive things. That's how we're supposed to be living. So if I can set an example by being telepathic with you as I'm doing now and with all your listeners, whether they're aware of it or not, it is not an intrusion in their personal privacy. It doesn't invade their consciousness. It simply connects to the very being that isn't physical body. And it's that we're communicating with each other through that medium, not body to body. Does that make sense? Tesla
Yes.
was recently, before this life, an extraterrestrial scientist. And he came here to try to head the world in using energy that's not polluting, and he was suppressed. His backer was Morgan out of Morgan Guarantee Trust in England, who wanted to make a lot of money off energy. So he supported Edison instead of Tesla when Tesla proved he could light up light bulbs in the dirt from a tower with no wires.
Mm-hmm.
It was his attempt to make the world change before people were ready to do it. Much of his work was classified, and he did work with classified people later in his life. So, any other questions?
No.
Okay. So people should ask me, where's Tesla now?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you would answer, so if maybe you can tell us.
You know, if I tell you, some people will claim they're Tesla on Earth and they'll fight it, but no. If I were him, I would not come back here in another body to try to do what he failed at doing then. I would be looking at this in a freer place, considering my options about how we get this awareness to people, working with people I know, with myself and others to bring this about. He's still around. He's still an Atma. He just doesn't have a body on Earth. For now, anyway.
Mm-hmm. I understand. I got it.
Well, okay, I'll bring this recording to an, I wanted to make sure people get this, Amazon.com or through my website at paralleltime.com.
Can you put the links under this video, okay?
Yeah, I'll include the links, but they can get this. The links are provided at the website, so they can go right to Amazon or iTunes or get a book or an ebook. No problem at all. It'll be shipped out to them because I don't warehouse and send these out myself. It's not practical all over the world. And they can get this book, The Emerald Doorway. There's what they look like as a being. These are key characters of this book. This happened 100,000 years ago at the end of the last cyclic polar shift involving extraterrestrials. That's history. This happens in current time out in space among galactic, interdimensional, and higher world beings. How they're treating things now that didn't exist before, and how they're viewing Earth in a way differently than they did just 8 or 9 years ago. And the techniques are in the back of this book, working with the hue, lots of them. So it'll be very helpful for people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Wish
Thank
everybody
you.
pleasant dreams. The same to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. So we see you again next time.
Okay, see you in a couple weeks. Bye for now.